Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Leather Chronicles. Before we get started, a little housekeeping. Um, if you are interested in past episodes of Leather Chronicles, they are available at the Aces Knoxville YouTube channel. If you're looking for kinky leather type stuff on the internet, you can go to the CJLC YouTube page. There are over probably approaching 200 videos of buy and other subject matter. If you're looking for books or information on the community, Buy Johnson's book, To Love, to Obey, to Serve, is back in print, as well as a fabulous book I think you might be interested in called What is Leather? That and many other books are available at StuckTheRainbow.com, where you will also find Carter Johnson Library and Collection merchandise that you can purchase that benefits the CJLC. I'm very excited to have a special guest tonight for this special episode. My guest is Master Robert from Silicon Valley. Gentlemen, I start with the same question I start with everybody. With the benefit of hindsight, when did you discover you were kinky?
I can almost put a date on it. I think it was right around, well, let's call it the late 70s. And I was 5 years into a marriage that I probably should have skipped. And I was trying to resurrect it from a sexual perspective. And I remember walking into a peep show kind of store, and perfectly nice, perfectly respectable looking joint. And the guy behind the counter said, "Well, what are you interested in?" And for whatever reason, out pops found breasts. Okay, well, that started things off immediately. Now that marriage ran its course about 20 years and 2 children, and then it was definitely time to move on. Now, once that was done, I started as a single parent, and of course had to be rather careful how I handled things, was to find the community. Well,
if I may, sir, approximately what age was this?
That would have put me in my mid-40s.
Okay.
And so at that time, there was no internet. And so I was working through these free throwaway magazines and newspapers that you could find in the major cities, and came across an ad for Society of Janus. And they had a part of their ad included education. They talked about that was an educational group. And that fed me, that worked for me, as frankly, at that time, I was a public school teacher. So I did contact them. A nice person responded and said, "Hey, we have an orientation coming up. Why don't you attend? And we'll get to see you and you'll get to see us." So I showed up at this orientation, someone's home, and there were quite a few people there. My recollection is that there were at least 25 to 30. And I looked around and I thought, oh my God, where the hell am I? And why did I wear what I wore? Which
What were you wearing?
Sport slacks, sport coat, and a tie. I'm not sure I could have looked any more out of place than I did. I certainly fell out of place, but it was okay because nobody said anything about that. People were friendly, and that was how I discovered the community.
Okay. And this, so Society of Janus, this is San Francisco.
Yes,
And give me just an approximate year. Well, you said you could almost give the date.
that would be 1990.
90. Okay. And do you have any recollections of just beyond that when you started interacting in the scene? Kind of give
Yes.
folks who maybe weren't around in 1990, kind of
Hmm.
give me a feel for what the scene was like.
Again, you had to know somebody. You had to know the secret handshake. So that's how you got in the door. Janice was providing classes, and I was attending. And I can recall this was 90, 91. And the scene at that time, uh, I'm sure there was far more going on than I recognized or could make time for. So what I do recall is attending a class put on by two well-known presenters in the scene, and I wish I could recall the names now, but I cannot. Uh, they'll come to me. Anyway, they put on a class on pervertibles,
Mm-hmm.
what you could find in a kitchen store or your own kitchen. And I attended. And halfway through the class, they took a break, and I was fooling around with some of the things that they brought. And a young woman and her husband came up to me and asked if I would be interested in watching them play. And I thought, well, I've never done that before. So let's give it a try. And I did. And that led to 2.5 years of a bottom teaching me a great deal about topping. They had at that point decided that they wanted to explore outside marriage. And so he thought, well, I would be a good person to try to work with. And so we would meet on average once a week for a couple of hours, and we would play. And she taught me a great deal about the really basic toys. She had them all. I didn't have anything at that point. And that's how we got started.
If you
Interesting.
could,
Oh,
go ahead.
yeah, go
No,
ahead.
you go ahead. No, I've got a
Well,
follow up. You go on.
one of the things that came up during that 2.5 years was that we were playing one afternoon and playing at their home, and all of a sudden there is a total emotional shift, and she is now crying excessively, and I'm standing there. I was caning her. Now, she had been teaching me how to do some caning. I've been caning her, and all of a sudden everything shifted, and I wasn't sure what to do. So the thing that came to mind was to simply gently take her over to the bed, let her settle her in, and I curled up against her and let her cry. And after probably 30, 40 minutes, things calmed down and we were able to talk a little bit. And what happened was that inadvertently, I stepped on a landmine, something buried in her history since probably the age of 12. And it was, she had been abused, and it was a family member. We've all heard the stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked more, and we did, the relationship did continue. She did get professional help, and because now she knew that landmine was there.
Mm-hmm.
And we continued for probably another 6-8 months. And then she and her husband decided they wanted to go a little different direction. And so she found me another partner. And I worked with that partner for another 2.5, 3 years.
That's awesome. My question that I had is, for anybody new coming to the scene as a top, who might have just off thoughts about learning from a bottom type.
Yeah.
What would you say are the pros as a new top learning from a bottom type?
I think it is absolutely, without question, one of the best ways to begin as a top. And I say that because this is, if I'm going to be a good top and can take that skill set and continue to move it toward a relationship style and into MS, which was the direction that ultimately I took, I was going to need to understand the other side. Now, I've had, I was in a class, and you were required, if you were a top, your bottom had to flog you. Okay, so I had that experience. Actually, my bottom then wife couldn't do it. So one of the leaders in the class, Treasure on FET, a wonderful gentleman, old friend. And so he did it. So I got a chance to feel it. What I felt was, ouch. And my brain is saying, okay, that's ouch. Now, what the hell good is it? Why, what does it matter to me about that? Well, I think I could argue the point in both sides, both directions. But ultimately, it was, I will develop over time a rational understanding of the submissive side. I will never have the emotional connections that a genuine submissive will have. Not good or bad, just an is. So but it was important to me to take every possible class, read books, discover as much as I could from the submissive side in order to be able to address, to understand that what I'm doing and how I'm doing it is going to make a big difference.
I asked for your thoughts on that. I agree with you 100%. I believe the tops should know what every implement in their toy bag feels like. Mm-hmm. And I also wholeheartedly agree with you. From my perspective, I will never understand what it feels like to submit, but I have been whipped with or whatever with every implement in my toy bag, because you shouldn't be using it on somebody if you don't know what it feels like. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. Mm-hmm. So you're running around society at Janus. You find a very positive relationship right out of the gate. They move on in a different direction. Where do you go from there?
At that point, after having been in the scene for probably more seriously for about 5 years, 5-6 years, I concluded that I was not going to find a whole partner. I wasn't going to find somebody with whom I could explore myself, including the kinky side, and a full relationship, which would include kink and uh, children and so on and so forth. Within the scene, I simply hadn't seen anyone that seemed to fit. I needed a partner that fit in both my vanilla world and my kinky world. Okay? And so I essentially suspended that. However, when I came to that conclusion, I talked to my first partner, and she just smiled. She listened. She just smiled and said, "No, that's not going to happen. You're going to be here, and you're going to find what you need. It's just going to take time." And she was right. And around 99, I had the opportunity and could control my time at that point, such that I came back into the scene, and that first partner was able to point me to SM Odyssey, which was a grouping of 4 people in the South Bay, San Francisco Bay Area, who had been able to pull together several weekend events, and this was a wonderful opportunity. Nice people, and so I took advantage of that. And at the same time, I called one of those people. I had been invited to call him, and I expected a 5-minute phone call, which turned into 2 hours. And at the end of that phone call, this person invited me to attend a particular discussion group. Now, this particular discussion group had no name, so it was strictly by invitation. And I really didn't know what I was stepping into, but what I found over time was that this was a group of people who were quite serious about their scene activities and their desire to live I guess you have to call it the leather lifestyle, a living MS. And so as a consequence, here we go. And I jumped into that group, and I found that it was easy for me to participate. I had things to contribute, which surprised me. I really hadn't considered that possibility. And so that's how I got into, that would have been 1990, 2000.
Okay. And so what was this group doing? What activities? What was it, a discussion group? Was it parties? Okay.
Parties, and weekend events, including those smaller parties, educational programs, all directed toward and directed at both tops and bottoms. So it was a very inclusive group, and one that drew a number of people in South Bay, and further out. But there were a lot of people in the South Bay already where it was ripe for an opportunity like this.
Excellent. So this is 99, 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So are you still interacting with Janice, or is it you kind of moved over to this group?
Yes, still interacting with Janice. Janice, I'm sure, like all more public groups, there's a kind of an ebb and flow over the
Mm.
years. So I've seen Janus shrink down to very small proportions, and I've seen it grow. Now, over the last several years, I've had the pleasure of volunteering to do tastings, and in my case, I choose to do whip tastings. Uh,
Mm.
and Janet's always has a very large booth at Folsom Fair. Now, I assume everybody knows what Folsom Fair is. All right, so Janice will be at one end of Folsom, and they rope off a big area with probably space for 15 scenes.
Oh, wow.
And what
Okay.
they're doing is providing space for people to have about a 10-minute long um,
Taste.
sensory opportunity. So there will be people who are providing floggings and canings and spankings and various other things,
Mhm.
including whips. And since I found over the years that whips were really a pleasure for me to work with, um, that's what I've been doing, and I've been volunteering for them. Oh gosh, it's been at least 4 or 5 years. And I've also volunteered at Pride. There's a what's called Leather Alley, and at Pride, and again, it's an opportunity for short tastings.
Wonderful. When did you pick up single tails?
Picked up Singletail, and thank you for referencing it that way. Uh,
I've been doing them
because
myself.
yeah, all right, good, good for you. I started out with floggers, and one of the things I noticed about floggers was that they're on the heavier side. And what I also noticed was that if I'm going to play, I enjoy playing, doing a longer scene. So a normal scene for me would be 45 minutes to an hour, and then aftercare time. So I thought about that, and I thought about, well, damn, now I can bring a 2 cartloads of Pullmans to, with toys in them. And yes, I'm being just a tad facetious. Uh, but that's not me. Again, I would
For
rather get the
for
most
those of you
out of.
for
Go
those of
ahead.
you who maybe didn't quite catch it, a Pullman is a passenger train car. So not quite that many toys, but close is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was. So I was learning multiple things at the same time. That longer scenes worked for me. I like I like a scene that you build like a short story. It has a beginning, has a middle, has an end. And so as I thought about that, okay, that means I'm going to need to be able to swing these things for a lengthy period of time, or I'm going to be forced to bring multiple toys to the event in order to do what I want to do. Now, there's no right or wrong about that. That's just an is. You have to find the things that the toys, the instruments that feed you, and then go with that. And so in my case, it was, well, a flogger, even one, is on the heavier side. So and then I was from when I would go to events, I would see people, a few people, throwing single tails. And I thought, oh, interesting, but it looks boring as hell. because I'm not seeing how their play, their style of play, is going to work with my style, my story kind of style of play. However, at the same time, I also started taking, I took whatever classes were available. And I can recall another old story. I can recall a gentleman attending one of the SM Odyssey weekend events, and he came also to sell whips made by somebody in Arizona, and I'll leave the names out. I ended up by the end of the class with two things. One, I met a gentleman named Viper, who from then on became a lifelong friend and still is, although he no longer makes whips. And I also bought a whip. Now, I didn't know anything about whips, so I was trusting that, well, gee, it is a whip. Then there's somebody here that has actually knows how to make a whip. Well, that is open to question now, because when I teach classes, I bring that particular whip with me. And because I cut off the heel knot end of it, because it was of the way it was built, that was about the only thing you could do. I needed to see the insides. And turns out it's very accurate on the horizontal, because it's made of layers of leather, tapered, and then bound with rawhide lace. So it's pretty accurate when you turn it this way, but when you turn it this way, look out. And I took it home, and I'm whipping the hell out of toilet paper or paper towels and
pillows,
couches, and trying to figure out, well, is it me or is it the whip? Because sometimes I'm very accurate, and other times, I can't find it. I can't find the target with both hands. So, as my education in whip building began. Now, I've never had an interest in actually building whips. However, if I knew that if I was going to be using whips seriously, or using a whip seriously, because I started with just one, then I was going to need to understand enough whip or whip talk to be able to discuss how these things are built and how they can be adjusted. And so that's where my whip education began, and my association with Viper came out of that. It was part of that education. I would sit down and when I could sit down in his workshop, and we'd drink coffee and talk whip. And it was wonderful. He was further ahead in terms of not only making whips, but also in playing in general. And so that was a benefit that I had in getting started. So once I began to understand that, well, a whip is not a whip. Sometimes it's something else. And it may not be what you thought it was. And of course, we can't keep cutting them in half and expect to have anything left or have any money left.
Have any money left, right?
So that's why I would hang around and watch and listen. and buy books on whip making so that I could better understand the tools that I was ultimately finding more and more useful. And therefore, I didn't have to carry. I started out carrying a flogger or two, and then discovered, well, I really don't have to carry a flogger if I can alter the crackers in such a way that I can get a softer feel. Therefore, I could use either one whip that has a softer feeling cracker on it as a warm-up tool, or I can take that softer cracker and try to figure out what is the actual sensation range it has. And what I have found that it's probably 0 to 6, maybe 7. And then if I have a partner who needs more than that, then I will shift to a second whip already set up, but with a much sharper feeling cracker to it. I also was beginning to think that, gee, I can touch my partner with one whip just as a touch, 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 touch. But what if I use 2 whips? Now what? Now it becomes touch, 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 touch. Now I'm playing with rhythms. Now I'm playing with pacing. Now I'm understanding the instrument. And as the more I began to understand the instrument, the more I recognized how versatile a single tail can be. And then as I begin to discover that, and simultaneously I was also working on how to easily shift from practicing or playing with one hand and smoothly shift it to the other so that I could move this back and forth as I needed. I could give my body a break. And it was following that I started being willing to pay for a matched pair of single tails. This is one of those toys. You start down that rabbit hole and it's hard to stop. And I haven't. So now I've got a pair. And I remember the first pair, and it was actually a pair of synthetics. This was not paracord. This was this gentleman who is not working at the moment, but he was making synthetic whips, nylon synthetics, nylon braiding, and I believe what it's called is whipmaker's lace. So it's not a hollow tube, but it lays tightly and can be braided very similarly to a rue. And I assume everybody knows what rue is. And at roughly half the price, because I wasn't paying for the high cost of rue. And so that was my first matched pair. And from that particular maker, that first pair came out so well that I figured, hey, for that price, let's see if we can get more out of it. Can I tune that pair of whips? Let's do another pair, but let's extend the core further so that we get a little more action a little more oomph at later on in the throw. And so out of all of that processing, I think I ended up with 5 pair. Uh-huh.
Folks,
But
listen and learn and protect your wallet. This is
yes,
how single tails goes.
yes. And the thing was, they were beautifully made. And he was as interested, he was a sport cracker. And that was his primary interest. However, he was willing to trim down his 4-foot version bullwhips to a 3-footer. And he was interested in the subtleties that I was asking about. And the more I learned about what I was doing, I think he was taking that in and taking advantage of it, learning from it himself. So between the two of us, this was a great setup, great deal for both.
That
And
sounds
that's
fantastic.
really where I got started with pairs. Then when I was ready to spend some big bucks, then it was into Rue. However, what I have found is that once you are competent with a single tail, and if you wish, 2 single tails, you can make almost any whip work remarkably well. But you have to know more than the whip does.
Yep. I was just about to ask, and the funny thing is the last thing you said, what's your if you were going to tell somebody to go get their first single tail, what length would you suggest? And were you talking a snake whip, bull whip, etc.? And my follow-up to what you just said is I can Florentine and I can do what I do with 4-foots.
Uh,
You put a 3-foot in I have never been able to figure out a 3-foot. It's just I now I don't have one.
yeah, yeah.
So it's just when I pick one up and mess with it. But the 3 is it just goes too fast and I can't quite figure
Yes,
it out.
yes,
Longer, I don't have a problem with. 3
yes.
gets
Okay. Now, for anyone who is relatively new to single tails, the way a single tail is measured is the braided portion of it. So a bullwhip and a snake whip, actually, if you buy it as a 3-footer, it's actually a 4 to 4.5 foot whip by the time you get down to the cracker. So, and yes, your earlier comment, Matthew, was exactly that everything happens faster. That's why, and in my case, my first whip, my first single tail was a David Morgan noisemaker, because if you asked him for anything else, he wouldn't sell it to you.
I was going to say, how did you get a Morgan?
That's how I did it. I said, I'm doing a little, and that was actually, it was true, because I used to breed and train dogs for both show ring and field work. Ergo, I needed a noisemaker that would reach out long enough, and a short whip was a good way to do that. So yeah, so then I could say, yeah, I'm not a musher. I work in field dog training, and so no problem. He was happy, I was happy.
If I may, sir, for the folks of you who don't know, if you've ever seen the Indiana Jones movies, David Morgan was the whip maker that made Indiana Jones's whips. Everybody in the community back then wanted a David Morgan whip. David Morgan didn't want his whips in our community. So getting one was quite the trick.
Yes, agreed. Not only that, but getting an actual David Morgan whip
Right.
was a challenge because he started uh, subbing out his whip making fairly early. And that was, and I understand he was a businessman. I visited his shop a couple of times in north of Seattle, and I thought, oh yeah, wonderful. Well, this was a storefront, and he wasn't just whips; he was selling all kinds of things. But he was a salesperson, and so this made sense.
So what length would you recommend
So
somebody starting?
thank you for the cue there. Uh, if you are sure that you want to explore single tails in scene, then I think you have to start with a whip that's going to be allowable in most play spaces. And in my experience, it's going to have to be under 5 feet total. So that means it doesn't matter how it's built, but the total length better be under 5 feet. Otherwise, the DMs who know less than you do, typically,
I
I've
laugh
had to
because it's
educate.
true.
I've had to educate many DMs. I was head DM for a number of years, and have DMs. So I understand the problems that DMs run into. So I don't pick on them, but I have had to discuss things, the finer points of what is actually possible, and then ask them, relax and watch what I'm doing. In particular, watch how far behind me the whips are going. And I particularly use white crackers precisely because even in a dim play space, you can see the damn things.
True.
And that's the only reason. There are some lovely colors, but the problem is if I can't see where the cracker is going, I don't get that immediate feedback that I expect to have. And this is one of the lovely things about single tails is that if you can see you will see what the cracker is doing. Just be prepared. You can watch it roll out in front of you. And that tells you all of what you screwed up in that particular throw and how you can make a fine point adjustment, and the next throw is going to be better, more accurate. And when I teach it, I teach two things. I teach accuracy and control of intensity. Because if you've got those two, then you don't need anything else. You've got you're covered, and your scene's going to go very nicely.
Yeah, you're not there to rend flesh.
Yep.
Unless you have a particularly heavy bottom.
Well, yes. Now, and then in that case, I'll change crackers.
Right.
And if I don't know this person, if I've never played with this person before, if it's anything close to casual play, then I will listen carefully to what they say. But then I'm also going to do my best to read the body movement and whatever sound they make, and cool the scene down, close the scene down gently before they think they're done. So they come back wanting more. At least that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I can tell from your words you're a good top.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
if well, this is not a sponsored video, so whoever he says this is not sponsored by, if somebody wanted
Right.
to go find a single tail, what makers would you send them towards these days?
Mm. Uh, I am rebuilding my list because so many have stopped making whips. My synthetics, that gentleman promises to go back into production, but he lives out in the dingleweeds, and he and his wife are building their own home, and I'm guessing they probably have started a family by now. So, and some of the other big names have also ceased production. So it's very hard to identify who. I actually went online to on Etsy and took a chance on a couple of people, and I gave them the parameters that I was hoping that they could reproduce. They said they could, and both did. Now, they did it in slightly different ways, but I ended up with two functional whips. And I've been taking those to classes, and I can share the people. What I think, instead of names, I would suggest, if you're talking a synthetic whip, uh, decently built, then nothing less than about 120. Now that might include postage, but I would say right around that price point. That's the cheapest I would go.
Okay.
You can find them for $50. I know. You can find them for less than that. I bought a few off of Amazon. They come out of Pakistan, and yeah, they're sort of a whip, and they sort of throw, but I wouldn't spend money.
I would say you're not going to learn anything positive with that quality of.
Yeah, agreed. Very much agreed.
What about for Rue?
Peru, all right. Well, yeah, before we leave synthetics,
Okay.
and
All
that
right.
includes uh, paracord. I have nothing against paracord, and what you will find people using most of the time is paracord. Um, a really good paracord whip, you're looking at 2 to 2.25 in today's market,
Mm.
and you're going to get it. You're going to get a good whip. It's going to be now. What does a good whip mean, though? It's going to be tightly braided. It's it may be a single or a two belly whip, but that's basically going to depend on how thick a handle, and what length of whip you really want to work with. Now, uh, like you, I found that an actual 3 foot signal whip, the turnaround was too fast. It turned around right around my ear, and I thought, no, I don't want this. So the 3 foot bowl was a nice sweet spot, and
Mm.
a 3 foot bowl with cracker and with the fall is, yeah, just under 5 feet. So at this point, I have yet to be thrown out of play space because my whip was too long, or whips were too long.
Right.
So, so that's for the synthetics. For a quality Rue whip, um, you can find some that are probably going to be they're going to be useful. They're going to be functional, and you're probably talking 375 retail. You want top quality. I think you're really faced with something in the 450 to 500 a piece range. I
That's
just don't think. Hmm.
about
Go
double
ahead,
from
sir.
when I bought about double from when I bought mine. So
Yeah.
I paid 240 for my first. I have a 4 foot axle.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
well, I can tell that you could talk to me all night about single tails.
I could.
Do you have anything else you want to make sure you say about them, and we'll move on?
Um, yes. Um, I was surprised the more interest I discovered in having them, in using them in play, the more I discovered that, damn, they're versatile. I can actually do a lot with a pair, much more than I ever imagined might be the case.
It's funny you say when you started, you thought they seemed a little boring.
Yes.
When I started, it's because anybody pulled out a signal whip and cracked it somewhere,
Uh-huh.
all the bottoms were like, "What's going on over there?" And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's got a peel right there. I
Uh-huh.
need to figure
Uh-huh.
that out." So
Uh-huh.
little different. Um, so San Francisco area is your stomping ground.
Yes.
Which came first, Masked Santa Clara or DS in the Middle?
Ah. Ah. Hmm. I think DS in the middle
All right.
because
Tell me.
that dates back to probably 2000 2005. Yeah, I
Okay.
think it dates
Tell
back
tell
that far.
tell me about DS in the Middle and how are you involved?
I came out of a divorce, my second and last divorce, fortunately. Uh,
Learned a lesson finally?
I did learn the lesson I needed. It was a lesson that I had not learned the first time around. And so I had to do this tap dance again. So in that process, I was unsure of, well, who I could talk with, where I could go and be accepted. And so I was doing classes, attending classes, and attending discussion groups. And there was one in San Francisco, and I attended those from time to time. And then SM Odyssey started a group as well in discussions. And that's how I became involved. So I was one of the very early uh, attendees, I think. And then as SM Odyssey was struggling to stay afloat, DS in the Middle was the one group that Odyssey wanted to continue supporting financially, and basically to get a venue. And came around 2009, I think, that the board decided, all right, we really have to close down everything else, but we're going to continue to support DS in the Middle. And there were two of us that were interested in trying to run that kind of group. And so we both tried it a few times, and ultimately the group decided that uh, they should give me a little more time, and that's how I got started.
So where'd you go with it? Tell everybody what it is first.
Well,
You
it
know,
is absolutely a discussion group, and in those early years, up through the beginning of COVID, it was an in-person group. So it was primarily Bay Area people showing up for serious discussion. Now, as I looked at that situation, I thought, well, I have attended different kinds of discussion groups, in part because I was an educator. And so I thought, well, what can we do with this? There are groups that set a particular question or two, and that made sense. At the same time, there were groups that were instead of setting a particular question or two for discussion, they would leave the door open. Now that's risky. I understood that it's risky, but I guess I am something of a risk taker. I thought that having the door open like that would allow people to come in and discuss something that is current for them. And if that theory held, then I didn't think we would have any problem running a discussion group based on that premise. And that turned out to be the case. So I never set questions in advance. What I would do, though, is when I would post an ad for the next meeting, I would always post sample questions. Now, those questions were all over the place. They weren't just leather oriented. They weren't focused on any particular activity or portion of the groups. Instead, it was what's out there and what might be timely. And I was also, I think, beginning to recognize the value of having these discussions, these open discussions. And when you run into a lull where it doesn't seem to be going anywhere, the moderator has an opportunity to step in and assist in some manner. And I thought, oh, well, hey, let's try these things and see where we can take it. And as a consequence, the group held up into COVID, and then COVID killed everything for a while. And then the group itself, the people who were attending on a very regular basis, were saying, hey, we want to keep this going. And I guess the only option is going to be virtual. And I said, you know what? I know diddly about virtual and how you set up a studio so that it looks and sounds decent. And so I said, okay, find me a tech person and to give me a hand with that part, and I'll try moderating via a screen. And that's how that got started. And once it got started, then all of a sudden, we're now getting people from way outside of California. This group is now, we've got regular people coming from New Zealand and Australia and the UK. And one moment, we have a hand up here. Yes. Ah, yes, thank you. Okay, I was just reminded that his cherry the lovely partner of Sir Thaddeus, has been marvelous in helping me with understanding and also handling tech. And then we have, of course, Gene, who has been doing the same thing, and again making these things possible, so that the part of the reason it's so important to me is that if my focus is split, and I have to pay attention both to the discussion and maybe to the chat, and then maybe to the tech side, because somebody won't turn on their camera, or fill in the blank,
or off their mic.
Yeah, then that interferes with the value to me of moderating a group. I think the group needs to be respected, and part of that respect is in being able to follow the flow of the discussion without any distractions. And so having Gene, or having his Cherry, running the tech side and throwing out the weirdies, whatever is necessary, means that I don't have to think about anything else. I also let people know that I'm not following the chat, that instead, if someone wants to include the chat or some portion in the discussion, please bring it out, and we'll handle it then. But those are personal choices that have made sense to me over time.
Makes absolute sense. And I have a comment here that, like all of us here and probably half the world during COVID, we all discovered Zoom.
Yeah. Amen.
So it was in person when you started, ran for many years. What was it like transitioning from a local in person to the national or international?
Remarkably easy. And I say that because I was often surprised, and I would ask how people found the group, and they would say, well, I was perusing FetLife and happened to stumble across this and decided, well, I'll give it a try. And so it wasn't so much a surprise as it was, I could see that as, wow, this is an opportunity. Here is somebody from another part of the world that wants to be able to talk about whatever it is, and we're apparently one of the few groups where that actually happens. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, I understand. We're very similar. We have a saying, especially on our Leather Pride nights. I kind of characterize it as, I have an axiom: all the best conversations happen in the smokers area. I learned more through my journey out in the smoking area, participating in conversations or overhearing conversations, than, I'm not going to say more than I learned in classes, but that's where I learned the minutia and the finer points. So we kind of characterize it as a virtual smoking area where everybody sits around, and we'll talk about, we've had nights where there were recipes discussed most of the night.
Sure.
And then we have nights where somebody comes in and asks, just a bombshell of a question that sparks an intense and very helpful conversation. So
exactly.
Sounds like
exactly.
kind of exactly what you're running.
Hmm.
And
We're
what
not.
nights are DS in the middle?
DS in the Middle runs the second Sunday
Oh, okay.
of each month.
So there's one coming up then.
Now, there is one coming up, and I'm not sure whether I'll be able to monitor or not. If not, then one of the discussions that's going to happen is how would the group in general like to explore finding another regular monitor.
Mm. Well, that sounds like it's a great group. What kind of size of crowd do you usually have? Not that it makes a difference, but I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Quality
Uh,
over quantity.
yeah, well, yes. I and strange, and I think about it in the same way. Um, the last, I think over the past year, we're looking at an average of at least 20 people
Mm,
on screen. And there have been times when I had to have two screens running.
right.
Most of the time, I think it's running between 20 and 25.
Okay. We're pretty close to what we've got here right now. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's about where we
Mm-hmm.
run. That's the sweet spot. Depends on the subject matter or what's going on sometimes,
Ah,
but
true,
yeah.
true.
So
And you
go ahead.
and you have to be able to pick and choose. I have tried a variety of ways over the years of choosing topics because I will always ask as we go quickly around the screen, um, whatever name you'd like to identify as, and then how would you like to, do you have a question? And over the years, the questions, the quality of questions is just remarkable and such a pleasure to hear. So that, now I expect that we're going to get 5 to 7 juicy questions, and we just can't get to all of them. We're doing well, I think, if we get to 3,
Mm,
but those 3 will get a thorough working out, and I will encourage the people who brought in the additional questions, hey, bring them back, because sometimes I have to be arbitrary and simply select, because I have not found a quicker way to keep the meeting moving
right.
from uh, posing the questions to, well, all right, now we're here to discuss. Let's go. And because I don't want people going to sleep. If people are nodding off, then okay, well, we've milked that one as dry as we can, and it's time to move on.
So tell me about Mast, your involvement in Mast.
Mast, I was involved. I was one of the original members of Santa Clara County Mast, and uh, over the years, there has been a huge turnover. As you can imagine, people find things and then later on move on because they're not finding what they were hoping to find. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. However, I continue to show up and simply to be a part of it, because the way Santa Clara County Mast runs, they do post a question up front, and that's the one that's going to be discussed. And they usually do it. They do it on Sunday evening, dinner time. So you bring your meal and let's discuss the whatever the topic is.
Okay. So how long have you been involved with Mast?
Oh, let's see, that would date back to probably 2005.
Okay. So you're interested in masters and slaves in MS. Can you
Uh-huh.
tell me, tell me what appealed to you about that in the beginning and what you find it to be experienced now overall?
Okay. Well,
Somebody who's not familiar with it.
right.
Sorry.
Uh, what drew me was the the concept of an all-encompassing relationship, not just a compartmentalized, we got this piece over here, got this vanilla piece here, and then we've got kids over here, and so on and so forth. I did not want to live that way. And the longer I have lived, the stronger that feeling has become. So how do I find a partner? And so it was, the beginnings were a matter of I had to find a partner who had similar interests, um, similar attitudes, and that required me to look much more carefully at myself and what were my attitudes, what were my what was my perspective, how did I feel about fill in the blank. um, can you, for example, um, I don't want to live in a series of boxes. So is there some way that I and an MS partner can attend a company picnic or a company Christmas party without outing myself or my partner, and thoroughly enjoy it, while at the same time thoroughly enjoy the fact that our relationship did not change. We simply found ways to adjust it in a public venue that allowed us to experience our MS in the midst of a whole crowd of people. So, for example, how do you know? Well, what can you do? What are some of the options? Well, here are a couple. My partner waits for me either to take the first drink of something or the first bite of food, and I get to play with that. And sometimes I might stretch that time out just because I can, and because my partner needs to feel that the relationship is here, is present, and we're working with it. So those are little things. She doesn't get out of the car until I open the door and let her out. And a little story to go with that. I had a partner who is now still a very close friend, and we were in a parking lot, open parking lot, probably half filled, and we're there to pick up something, some sort of supplies. Anyway, stationary, I think. So we were driving in, and we'd been talking and about what we were going to pick up and so on and so forth. And so I find a spot in a shady area, and I park shut off the motor. She's already out the door. And then it dawns on her what she's just done. So now what? So now she gets back in the car and hopes, well, maybe I'll let that slide. Well, how many times can you let something slide before it becomes meaningless? So she got back in the car, and that was fine. And I quietly came around, and in those probably 10 seconds, I'm mulling over the variety of possibilities that I would have in addressing this situation, including ignoring it entirely. Decided, no, I'm not going to ignore this, not because it's fun, because I don't need an excuse to express my mastery. All I need is a time and place. So with that attitude, this could have happened anywhere. Anyway, here it is. She's giving it to me on a platter. So I came around, opened the door, firmly but gently pulled her out of the vehicle, and there was probably 2 inches of space between her and the vehicle. And so I pushed her hard against the vehicle there. So, yeah, was it going to do any damage? Hell no. But it got her attention. And she knew once again that, yep, I'm serious, just as she is. And so and then I whispered in her ear, held her in that position, and whispered things like, oh, you know what you did. You know that you're going to be careful about it in the future. And now we're going to go into the store, and I will never bring this up again. And off we went. And we had a marvelous time. So,
I've always had a thought, and I'd be curious what you think about this. I have always thought and often opined that the closer you get to 24/7 in your relationship, the less obvious it is to the outside world.
I think you could make a good case for that. I really do.
You made me think of it talking about all the little things you can do while you're out in the world, but that the relationship is still there and present.
Right. I think you make an excellent case out of that. And we're doing it. And in part it is the pleasure of being able to do it. It's also the challenge, shall we say,
right,
of being able to live the way we want to live
and choose to
live in any space, no matter what it looks like.
Yep.
No matter who's there.
You don't have to be dragging somebody down the sidewalk on a leash
exactly.
for that bond and tie to be there.
Yeah.
You can do it up here just as well as you could do it in the physical.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
His Cherry says Master Robert is passionate about meaningful protocols.
She is correct.
Can I have an example or two?
Okay, meaningful protocol. I happen to enjoy lattes and espressos I have my own machines. I teach my partners how to operate them.
Mhm.
And that, of course, encompasses the occasional oops when something happens. But if you, maybe the best way to to explain it is to say, what would what do the two of you enjoy doing, or does one of you enjoy doing? Because it doesn't have to. The instigation can come from either side. So, what does what might be interesting to both of us? And I'm going to take a look at that situation, and I'm going to try to find ways of making it work in a situation that where it's not really, it wasn't really intended. So you've all heard of I'm sure, Japanese tea ceremony. Well, you could make a really good case for any kind of ceremony surrounding anything, including making a latte, because there are very formal uh, movements, actions, necessities that you need to understand in order to create this really unique drink. And so, and it can come down to, it's not just, what beans did you use and how did you grind and how did you foam the milk and so on and so forth. It also includes how you present the cup. If I may, would you bring me a cup? Cup and saucer would be fine. And I'll give you a very quick demo. Hopefully. Yes. I hear sound. I hear movement. Here we go. Perfect. Thank you. Now, I'm right-handed. So for me, I'm going to try to get this thing in the right spot. I want the finger hook available in the right hand. I don't want it over here because now I'm going to have to do something about it. Anywhere other than here, and I've got a problem. Now, what about, well, are we going to move? If she brings the cup and it's like that, oh, my finger's over here. Well, now, is she going to move this in the cup and just hold the saucer in a stationary position? Or is she going to move the whole saucer and cup into the right position, which would be here? Now, there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's simply, you have the option of doing it in different ways. You okay? Here, we have another little demo. Now, she just handed this glass to me. Whoops, there we go. Like so. Now, if we were both drinking from it, then she might, and if I offered her the first sip, then she might rotate the glass so that I can sip from a fresh spot. Also, offering the glass in this manner so that I've got space to grab onto it. If I'm grabbing here and it's a white wine, I'm going to warm up the wine. Well, that sucks because that particular wine is probably better tasting if it's on the cooler side. So things like that make a difference. Now, I'm not sure if that answers his cherry's question.
It wasn't really a question. It was a statement that you
A
are passionate
statement.
about meaningful
Okay.
protocol. And I'm going to
Yes.
throw this one out to you while we're on protocols, because
Okay.
people like to talk about, they hear about high protocol, or they hear about a high protocol event,
Mhm.
and they always want to know, what are the protocols? And
Well, hmm.
that's a good one for you.
Oh, that's a terrible one for me.
Well, I have a follow up, because I
Uh,
generally tell people the protocols are whatever the host or hostess tells you the protocols.
yes, and that's the safe way out. But to be fair to her question, um, I uh, I appreciate formal service. I appreciate that someone has taken enough time to learn how I like things done so that they can do them in that way. Now, if I don't know how I want something done, then there are opportunities there, and I would enjoy taking those opportunities and talking about them in advance and then test driving them. I've also been in situations where it was a formal dinner and it was not a regular partner. It was someone who agreed to serve uh, during that dinner. And I can remember in one case, and it happened to be at Ted and Sherry's home at the time. And my server screwed it up, and I don't recall what it was, but she kind of made a mess of things. And I looked at that situation and thought, okay, I've got all kinds of options here in ways that I could handle it. And my option was to go the instructional way to, number one, reassure her that this screw up is just one incident, not to worry about it. Here's how I would like you to handle it. So take a deep breath, give yourself a moment, and let's do this again. And the rest of the night was so much smoother for both of us. She did a marvelous job. She was now much more focused. So she was paying attention to how I was doing things. And that made for a delightful evening and follow-up conversation afterwards. My theory is that if their focus is not in place, then their service is going to be less than. However, tops are not off the hook, or masters. Uh, if you don't know what the hell you're trying to do, then maybe it's time that you paid attention and learned enough about yourself to understand how you want something done,
His
because
cherry is
it's
follow.
going to happen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, my apologies. His cherry is following up with, the art of setting people up for success is one of Master Robert's superpowers. And I was thinking about your story you were telling, and it sounds to me like what you did was put them at ease. and allowed them to relax a
Mm-hmm.
little bit and not be so nervous or worried. And it was better
Correct.
service because they weren't uptight.
Correct.
That's what I
That's
heard.
exactly right. And that's what happened.
I I am super glad to have made your acquaintance this evening. Listening to things, I think we see a lot of things the same way. I kind of wish I had met you sooner, and we could have spent a little more time
Me
together
too.
over the years. But you,
Yes.
I could ask a question, and I have a feeling what you're going to say, and we're on the same page on a lot of things. Um, I like it.
Good.
Do you have any other things that you want to make sure we talk about this evening? And then I will see if we have any questions and we'll get to some questions.
Okay.
Is there anything I haven't touched on or
No, I think you've done an excellent job
thank you?
and kept me on course as well, which is sometimes a challenge. Now I'll admit that. Uh, I am a fundamentals guy. Whenever I try to understand something, I try to find the heart of whatever it is, and and then work my way back out to where I want to be and how I want to be. One of the things that I have learned, one of the fundamentals, is that relationship simply is. That relationship really is, to me, it's composed of two parts. One is whatever you want to call the relationship. And in this case, we'll call it power exchange or MS or whatever. I don't care about the terminology. What I care about is that if I'm respected and I feel that I should be respected, if I am treating my partner in a respectful manner. That road goes both ways. Now, getting back to the real point here, the way I play is tied directly to the kind of experience that I'm going to have with a partner in play purposes. And it's not going to be that different from a vanilla situation. So I'm what I'm trying to say is that the relationship is the relationship, and then how you express that relationship is the other component. That's the other key component. So you can express it in a variety of ways. You can express it through sex. You can do so through beatings or non-beatings or any other kind of play you want to come up with. But one affects the other. I don't think you can have one without the other. So that is something that was an aha moment for me, and one that I have appreciated over the years.
All right, I've got a doozy for you. I'm going to start the question session with one of my own. You've been around a touch longer than I have. From when you started to now, what changes have you noticed in the community, good and bad?
The community seems to ebb and flow over the years. There are times when people were focused on being more community oriented. and times when community didn't seem to matter. All that seemed to matter was me, me, me. And it feels like we're going through one of those me, me, me times right now.
Absolutely agree.
And sadly, the people that are creating the issues will not be around in a couple of years anyway. They will have moved on to some other venue.
True.
And wreaked their havoc regardless.
That's true enough.
Does that answer your question, though?
Yep. That's
Fair enough.
We are definitely in a me, me, me section right now. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. If you're good, I'll open it up for some questions. If you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand. I'm going to go ahead and warn you. Sometimes we don't get a lot of questions because everybody has just been wrapped up and focused and drawn in. So the more interesting you are, the less questions we tend to have. So Jeremy's going to lead us off. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Thank you.
I have two questions for you. The first one is, what would you say is the most meaningful or positive experience you've had? And the second one is, how do you control a single tail to create a lick in a kiss?
Well, let's start with the first one first. I think it was the first time that I found that a partner paid such close attention that he was handling things in the way I would have wanted and would have asked for had I been asked. It was subtle. It happened unexpectedly, and I can still remember how that felt. And I thought, wow, this really is a part of who I am. And it wasn't, it wasn't some hugely difficult activity. It was that he cared enough to pay attention without me having to teach her. She self-taught. And boy, did I notice that, because it is so rare to see. Now, if you have a follow-up to that answer, then that's fine. But at the moment, I'll go into the second question. I'm not sure what you mean by a lick and a kiss.
The way that I've heard it described is a lick is when the cracker just gently grazes the skin. And a kiss is when it's just a step past that.
Okay. Here we go. To me, and the way I teach it is, the first is what I would call a brush stroke. And my partner, sitting about 3 feet from me, I heard the words come out of her mouth immediately. And what I'm talking about is that you can throw in such a way that you don't allow the whip to crack. You simply allow it to continue unrolling until there's no place else to go. However, at the same time, it just ends its throwing, and then you start reloading it for the next throw. Whereas if I'm throwing with the intent of making it crack, then I'm going to throw it, and then there's going to be a slight hesitation that you're going to have really good eyes to notice, to see it. But there'll be that slight hesitation, and that signal to the whip that I want it cracked right there. And that's what will happen. Does that help? Does that make any sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Girl Aaron would like to know, when you started out, what is one thing you wish you had learned or done differently?
Learning more about myself. There is, I think, a natural fear of what you might find when you start looking at yourself. And at the same time, if you don't take the time to learn more about who you are, then it's going to be very difficult for you to portray yourself accurately to a potential partner.
Would you agree with the saying, difficult to master someone else when you haven't mastered yourself?
Yes. That's a lovely way to put it.
Wolf?
I was wondering how much you crossed paths with the gay leather scene and how much that did or didn't influence your pathway along the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. The gay leather scene has been in the San Francisco Bay Area for all
the time.
All the time. As long as there has been gay leather. So, and if you're hinting at, well, how did that affect you? I did have to pay attention to, well, how did I feel about gay leather? How do I feel about playing with same-sex people? As it turned out, that didn't bother me. I see people as individuals, and if your preference is to express with someone of your sex, great, go enjoy it. When I've done samplings on behalf of Janice, it's been both male and female, and non-binary and whatever else. And I don't have a problem with that. Now, is that because I was raised in a household that essentially accepted everybody? Or is there something else going on? I honestly don't know. I had the opportunities, and I still have those opportunities to talk with and potentially play with Leatherman. It's not a particular interest of mine, but if someone wants to feel what I'm offering, what I can create, then I am there.
Somebody else to beat? Yes, please.
Yeah. No, I would never do that.
River, and then I'm going to get to Jesse's question here in the chat.
Hello. So I'm going to throw mine in the as well, so everybody can read it if they'd like.
Okay.
So, for those on a path of mastery, what do you think are the core areas of development necessary to cultivate and embody mastery in a healthy, respectful, honorable, genuine manner and minimize the likelihood of falling prey to traps of ego?
Traps of ego. Ego doesn't get involved in this kind of stuff.
Well, no ego involved at all. Of course.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Sorry.
I think first and foremost, keep in mind that there are such traps. I think overall it is back to learning everything you can about yourself. Because the more you understand about yourself, the more honest you can be with the people around you. And the concepts that as you explore, you're going to find opportunities. Let's see. No, that's kind of the wrong road to go down. Let's keep it clearer. Fundamentally, get to know yourself. Get comfortable with yourself. If you find areas as you explore yourself that you have discomfort with, then I would suggest that those are areas that you want to explore, that you may need to explore in order to be honest first with yourself and then with a prospective partner.
Aaron has a question.
Your question. I'm sorry, I jumped in there.
You're fine. Aaron has a question in the chat. Jesse, I am getting to yours. This kind of ties into what you just said. In your early years, was there a time when you struggled to understand or felt guilty in regards to your sadism and desires? Are you a sadist?
Yes.
I knew the answer to that one just from the things you said earlier. But
yes, and there were, and the reason was I didn't know enough about what I was trying to do. I didn't understand enough of the fundamentals to be able to create something. And so as a consequence, there were times when I was embarrassed. Nothing terrible happened, and I feel good about that. But yes, it became very clear, and clear to the point where I knew if I was going to remain in the lifestyle, if this was actually going to be a part of me, then I was going to have to learn much more about me. And so that was the impetus to begin that lifelong learning process.
If I may, to answer the question, I grew up in, my mother and father had a very abusive relationship. And from a very young age, I developed the thought process that I would never hit a woman. That's what I came out of that with. So when I discovered this, there was a big, whoa, hang on a second. How do I jive? I will never hit a woman with this woman wants me to hit her. And it took me some time to wrangle that and come around to, I will never hit a woman unless she asks me nicely to. But there was a lot of issue there. That was a big one.
And if I may, I'll follow up on that. If I love my partner and I know that striking her will create endorphins that she is hungering for, then what am I to do? Am I to deny my partner? Or am I to demonstrate my love and care by exploring those areas that I know she wants to explore?
And let's all throw the word consent out just so everybody knows that we're talking.
Absolutely.
Okay, Jesse has a good one. I heard you saying that you learned a lot from one of your early submissives, which is lovely. I've heard a lot of people say that doms should mentor doms and subs should mentor subs. And I wonder if you have thoughts on that recommendation, or should people just find someone they click with who has more experience than them?
That is a question loaded with baggage. I've heard the same stories, the same line of thinking, and what I've come away with is, if you can find a partner who is equally interested in pursuing their path, then that's going to be the right partner. And I'm not going to care whether it's male, female, non-dom, etc. I think the quality of the person is what's going to matter.
And I would follow up that I would encourage anybody to limit their learning from one particular person or side of the slash or what have you. There's too much to learn from everybody around you to be that. Don't put those blinders on.
Yeah.
Don't be blinded to learning from the other side of the slash. That's probably the biggest hurdle. Does anybody else have any questions? Looks like we're good with questions.
All right.
Master Robert, do you have anything that's come to mind that you want to say? We'll turn the recording off and we can just hang out a little bit if you like.
I'm happy to do that. I genuinely appreciate this opportunity. I had no idea that something like this might be possible. My health issue came up suddenly. It all happened within this year, and all those things that I wanted to be able to share are now challenged, including all that I have learned about throwing and about playing with playing. Playing is not the right word, but I'm not sure what is the right word. I've never found it. But expressing myself with a partner and she expressing herself, there is such beauty in those possibilities. And I want them. I want them as long as I can.
Agreed. Sir, it's been out. His Jerry's got a question. Go ahead.
I don't really have a question. Master Robert has been a part of our life for all of Master and I relationship. He's also a member of our letter family.
Yes. Yeah.
And brother, I just want to say how much we love you, and Michelle, how much you both mean to us. And I want to send the love from everyone who was here this weekend who missed you both very much. We will continue the legacy that you have set.
Thank you. That means a great deal.
Thank you.
We all want to be remembered in some way, the best possible ways. And one will never know how that happens or what is remembered. Hopefully anything that is remembered is something positive, something that was helpful, useful for someone's individual journey. I was just handed something here. What should I do about that? Okay. I'm not sure they can see. Okay. One of my partners is asking a question. Looking back, how has your style of mastery changed? Wow.
It got better.
But Matthew, what does better mean? Define better for me.
I'm just demonstrating how much ego doesn't play a part in any of this.
Oh, of course not.
Miss Sophie says aged like fine wine.
There is that, and Miss Sophie is absolutely correct.
Probably.
The longer I have had the pleasure of working with a partner, the more I have learned about what is possible. It's amazing. The things, the possibilities that I thought were there, and to discover, oh yeah, those are still there if you want to play with them. But then there are all these other possibilities, damn it. And I want more time in order to do exactly that.
Right.
Things have become more subtle, maybe. I'm able to I don't even have to think about when my partner and I are out in the vanilla world. It just flows very smoothly. And it does so not because we've spent hours and hours practicing at home, instead because we've thought about it and talked about it and gotten our focus where it belongs. And once that happens, then the changes become more subtle and yet more profound. Now, they did throw another question at me, it looks like. Yeah, well, and of course, this is, you get to these situations here. How would you describe your style of mastery? I'm not sure I have a way of describing it, other than, well, maybe I do. I am not I'm not an advertising person. I don't put myself out as God's gift to anything. I am living my, ladies, please. I'm living my life in a way that feeds me and seems to feed my partners. And so my style of mastery, as a matter of fact, now, all right, and I think I know where this came from. I have a former partner. A partner will always be a partner. She's becoming a very close friend now, and is finding and looking for another partner to continue to explore when I'm no longer available to do so. And so I remember this particular gentleman who is an old close friend. And he says, he told me once that he really appreciated how I trained this particular partner. And my head went zooming around. Squirrels are going like crazy. Say, what are you talking about? I'm not sure what I told him. I think I just something about, well, gee, I don't honestly know. It was a conscious effort to, but basically it came down to a conscious effort of, I like things done in a particular way. And if that is something that feeds you, then we can continue to explore together. And so that's probably the best way to explain my style of mastery. Now, someone else who knows me well, and there are several people on screen that fit that description, particularly Ted and Sherry, and others that we have become acquainted with. We'll see other things, and we'll see what I've experienced and put a different spin on it. Let's put it that way.
Well, I would say, just from meeting you 2 hours ago on Zoom and listening to you tell your story, that it's a good form of mastery. That's my gut feeling from our interaction this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to thank you for joining us for a special edition. If you feel like there's more we can talk about, I've kind of been sitting here thinking, if you had the time and we can figure out a time that works, it might be fun to do something similar again and record it, but maybe just have conversations. Do the smoking area thing where we just sit around and interact with the group and record it. And we'd have to figure out how we could do that so people that don't want to be on camera, we just have to figure out the logistics there. But I think it might be fun just to have a general conversation with you as a part of it, and the focus to a certain extent of it, and maybe record that as well, because before we started, my girl was like, I can't believe you're not recording this. So we just started talking, trying to get to know each other a little bit. And Char was like, I can't believe you haven't started recording yet. So maybe we could record a little more of you in a social interaction and glean some more things that we wouldn't just get in a question and answer interview.
Sure.
So we'll talk about that off camera. But it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and hearing your story.
Thank you. It means a lot to me to have this opportunity.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about what we do when we finish off here.
Fair enough.
Everybody, thank you. This has been Master Robert telling his journey through the community and preserving his story.